super proud to present you guys, to introduce you to Robert Montgomery, our British-Scottish artist who's joining us this year with the most amazing sculpture in the Bogota skyline. Robert?
Hi. I can only see myself. I can't see anyone else. Oh, there we are. Hi, guys.
Okay, so we're going to show you a little documentary film we made about all of the process of what was Robert's intervention here. So let's go.
Is there no sound?
I think we don't hear it, but they do.
You know, father figures, and they were a big inspiration to me because they were guys who worked super hard in a really dangerous industry, and it took me a long time to recognize how difficult their lives were. Only a few years ago, when my father was dying himself, he was talking about how his father, my grandfather, would work in the coal mine 364 days of the year and only take Christmas Day vacation because, you know, they needed the money, and he had to work that hard to take care of his family, get my father an education, and, you know, I was really struck by that. I was really struck by how much more privileged my life is than my grandfather's. Sometimes in that environment, you're not taught to really be proud of your background if it's a really humble background. And so I realized that I hadn't been proud enough of my grandfathers or the sacrifice they made working so hard to take care of their families. They believed in love deeply, and they were super caring and very much examples of kindness in how they lived. I wanted to do a piece of art that's a memorial for them. So I wanted to make a piece for them that would be a very short poem. So the piece says, "Mine love, distribute hope," which is what my grandfathers did in our lives. I wanted to bring the piece to Colombia because there's a big tradition of mining of all kinds in Colombia, and a lot of generations of families who've worked in mining industries. And in Colombia, we made it the biggest version that we've made so far. And I wanted, since my grandfathers spent their lives under the ground, to do the memorial for them high in the sky as possible. So we found this beautiful building that's really high-rise in the center of Bogota, and we did the piece up in the sky. My feeling was if we did the poem almost talking to the sky, then maybe my grandfathers can hear it, and they can see the message, "Mine love, distribute hope." The second part of the message, "Mine love," obviously is about them. "Distribute hope" is about my belief that the only way to distribute hope in a society is to have free education, that good education is available freely to everyone. And you know, my life and the privilege of my life has been a result that I could access good education free of charge when I was a child, and that's a very, very important part of a civilized society. So that's the second part. Anyway, I think the festival is opening, and I hope you can see the light poem in the skyline of Bogota, and I wish I could be there with you all, but because of the COVID travel restrictions, I'm stuck in London. But I'm sending you all warm thoughts and warm wishes and my best, and I hope you have a great festival, guys. Lots of love. See you soon.
Robert? Robert.
Hello.
So I know I want to start this interview telling you that today your piece is the front, like the first page of the biggest newspaper here. So for us, it's such a great honor for you to have accepted this invitation, that you share your words, your poem, all of the meaning that it has behind it, and you decided to enlighten our Bogota skyline and share all of these beautiful, and especially this art piece, because I know it's, as just the video said, is very dear to your heart.
Yeah, it's a very personal piece for me, I think, because like I say in the film, it's a tribute in my mind to my grandfathers, who were both coal miners, and I wanted to make a sort of monument for them, and I wanted to make it in the sky, because they worked under the ground. And it's amazing that it can travel to Bogota and have a great effect there, and it's amazing to be in front of the newspaper. Wow. I mean, I wanted to do it in Colombia because I feel as though Colombia is a country where there's a big tradition of lots of kinds of mining. So people who, come from countries where there's that tradition of industry, I think understand the importance of ordinary working people and the importance of their labor and how hard people work to take care of their families. And really, it's a monument, therefore, to all manual workers, not just miners, but everyone who works hard to take care of their family, really, because we don't give those people enough acknowledgement or enough praise.
For sure, and also the education, all of the education things you were saying, that thanks that you had these like free education, and that is what should have everybody. And here in Colombia, it's not like that. So I think it's a very powerful message
Yeah,
to
I
make
think
us think.
that's the important part of the message. I think that, my grandfathers also, who were coal miners, they came from Scotland, and the Scottish coal miners had lots of campaigns for education for their children. They even went on strike sometimes for the children to have free schooling. And in Britain, coal miners, actually going back to the 1800s, were the first people to have public libraries, because they really understood the value of their children having a better education than they had. And so, my father, his generation, for example, was the first beneficiaries of that, because by the time he was a teenager, then, in the 1950s in Britain, the program of free access to education for everyone really took force, and my father was able to go to grammar school, and he got a different job that wasn't in the mine, and I think that was something that happened in Britain in the 1950s. But it's even here, it's something that we still have to remember. We had to fight for that free education, and remember, we always have to protect that. And I think that it's a really, really, really important part of building a society.
Yes, definitely. It is, and knowledge is the key, and it is really important that it's really broad and that people do have access. Here in Colombia is a little bit difficult, but I think it's a really great message to bring that into attention, and to say something about it through beautiful
that's the message,
works, beautiful images.
Thank you.
Yeah, especially in this time that is like okay, so I've like, you are portrayed not only like as a British artist, but also as a poet.
Yeah.
When I Google you, you say that it says that you're also a poem. I want you to explain us what is the influence that literature has in your work.
Well, you know, I studied painting in art college at university, but I was always obsessed with poetry. I was always obsessed with the poetry of Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes and Philip Larkin, poets of that generation of the 1960s. And
I love it.
I also was influenced by text artists like Lawrence Wiener and Jenny Holzer. There's been a tradition of text art since the 1960s also. And then, you know, I wanted to bring my love of poetry into my work in some way. So, you know, not all of my work is long lines of poetry. Not all of my work necessarily rhymes like poetry, but I wanted to bring the voice of text art a little bit closer to the voice of poetry and see what is in between those two spaces. I mean, I'm not the best poet even in my family. My wife Greta Ballamacina is the best poet in my family. So, you know, I'm not even, and don't claim to be a great poet, but to look at what language can do in space, to look at what language can do in urban space, and to look at how we could take the idea of concrete poetry and make that sculptural, and make that in civic space, was what I wanted to sort of investigate with my work. So it's an investigation of that, really, the work that I do.
I love it. Also, I wanted to ask you, like, in this line of your public sculptures and installations, you have different types of ways of resolving the material solution. So you have like fire poems, you have the billboards, you have the light poems like this one. What is the difference between them, and what do you want like to achieve? Or is there a meaning if you choose one medium instead of the other, or if one poem is restricted to one type of way of development?
Those different mediums, like billboards, light pieces, and fire poems, dictate a certain length of text. So on a billboard, I can write maybe between 90 and 100 words. I mean, I look at each medium trying to make the text work for that medium, right? So billboards are 20 feet by 10 feet. And so if I'm doing a billboard piece, I worked out just by trying it that the right number of words for that to look right graphically is about 90 words, right? So then with the billboard work, and from 2004 until 2012, my work was almost all on billboards, and it was done around London where I live, and it was done at night, and I'd go out and I'd put up the billboards at night, and you know, it was done in a surreptitious way. And the writing I had to do for that medium had to be around 90 to 100 words. So I was then always taking longer poems and really condensing them down into the essence, the shortest essence as possible, in a sense. But you know, poetry is like that as a medium anyway. When you write poetry, you often start longer, then you try to edit down back to the essence. You know, if you look at great poems like The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, for example, that was edited down by Ezra Pound, almost 65% of what Eliot started with. So poetry is an art of condensing down and editing yourself down to a point where you feel like you have the essence of the words. So from that point of view, working on billboards forced me to get my writing shorter and more condensed, I think. And then the light poems are slightly different in terms of the tone I want them to have. You know, the billboards kind of have lots of different voices, and they get involved in questions of politics and ecology and questions of society and freedom. And there's the space to do that in a billboard. With the light works, I have a shorter text to play with, so I want this to be more simple and more hopeful, more universal, and kind of more inspiring in a way, so that they are like little hopeful messages, because I think that's the best thing I can do in that medium. The fire poems I make are kind of like, well, they're kind of, you know, fire poems for me is a sort of like almost ancestral thing, because in Scotland, in my indigenous culture, before we had Christianity, the pagan culture of Scotland and Ireland would have fire poems to celebrate the solstice and the equinox and the harvest. And when Calvinism came to Scotland in the 1600s, those were banned by the new church. So in a way, when I started doing fire poems, I wanted to reignite that tradition of pagan celebration through fire.
Beautiful.
So that's kind of the way I see those personally. And then I make paintings with words in them. And, you know, if I can think of something good to do with words in it, I'll make it pretty much.
Okay, super cool. I love how you play with your heritage all alongside. I find it very, very interesting and very refreshing. Also, I wanted to ask you, like, throughout your career, you've always made a point of exhibiting your work in public spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you made this sort of a point. What does, like, European art and advertisement has to do with it?
Well, I mean, I did that because, I mean, after I did my MFA at Art College, I went to Houston to be a young artist on this program in the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston called the Core Program. And it was a great privilege. And you sort of have a studio in the museum. And I was around the museum world a lot then. And I even worked for a time as a curatorial assistant in the museum during that time. So I got to understand the museum very well. And of course, I love museums, but I also really wanted to reach an audience who didn't come to the museum, you know? So I wanted to find a way of working that would reach those people too. So I started making work in the streets to try and do that. And my hunch was that people in the street, you know, what we think of as ordinary people, are much more able to, you know, understand contemporary art than we sometimes think. You know, it's not that hard. Contemporary art's pretty easy to understand, actually. So I didn't want to, you know, just be behind that barrier of museum walls when I started making my work. So I really wanted to be in the street. What was the second part of the question? I forgot.
That what does like advertisement or graffiti, European art, have influenced the way you wanted to show this in public spaces?
I was always really influenced by graffiti, and I was always really influenced by graffiti that said like strange things, you know, weird things. And there was a tradition of graffiti in London in the 1970s and 80s that was almost quite surreal, and I found it really beautiful. There's a sort of I mean, in terms of the words we see in the city on a day-to-day basis, most of the words we see in the city is advertising, or it's a sign for something, and that language is very, very simplistic and just treats. It's a materialist language, and it just treats us as consumers. And so, you know, I find it like therapy almost to put words in the street that aren't just doing that, that are more emotional, that are more sensitive, that are more vulnerable, that come from like a more, you know, emotional place. And I hope the audience finds that therapeutic also to an extent. I think urban space and also digital space, which is increasingly, you know, the space we inhabit, I think they're both dominated by the dominant languages of advertising and, you know, politics and the news media, right? And those two languages are the dominant languages of our time. They are, as Roland Barthes would say, the types of speech which are dominant. And what advertising and the news media both have in common is they are completely materialist languages. They only speak to us as consumers or demographics, and they don't speak to our hearts, and they don't treat us like really feeling beings. And I think the language of poetry is the one language that can really speak to the child inside of us and really speak to us in a way that unifies ourselves with the world. And so that's why I think it's interesting to bring the language of poetry into urban space and into digital space also, because I feel like we're alienated from so much of the contemporary world. It shuts out our emotions, and often we work in jobs where we can't bring our emotions to work, things like that, you know. So we have to try to find therapies to reconnect our emotions with the world. And like I say, to speak to the child inside of us, I think is really, really important.
Yes, I agree with you totally. In Barcú this year, that was one of our main challenges, like how to bring that emotion in these difficult times throughout art, and that it would be available not just for people who own a computer, but for people that walk the streets, that are in the city and have no access, or just people even that have computers or that will connect to the platform, but to give them the enjoyment and the opportunity to see something different, something that will touch their heart, something with a beautiful message. So we made a very, 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 very big effort on finding the perfect pieces that to create like a common social space for reflection, and to enhance that sensibility that is within our humans.
Yeah, it's really important. And also I think must be hard for the festival, because I know that your festival music is normally a big part, and gathering together and dancing is a big part, and it must be difficult from that point of view. And I think it's difficult for all of us everywhere in the world at the moment, because we're not having that ability to be together and to, you know, hug our friends and to dance all night. And I mean, as an artist, I'm lucky that I'm still in this time to be able to work, but my friends who are musicians are completely struggling. They can't work, they can't get any money, they're not getting help from the governments, and it's really tough. So I think it's, you know, we have to be privileged, feel privileged in this time if we're able to do our work at all. And we have to think of all those people who at the minute can't work, and all those people who are really struggling financially because of the crisis. And it's really going to be something with more layers, I think, than we can even see in this moment, in terms of the economic challenges for many countries after this thing. But also we have to keep the flame of hope alive, and we have to know that one day we will dance again, and, you know, next year hopefully Barcú will be a festival full of music again, and there will be places to go hug your friends again.
Yes, that is true. We in the festival had to like rethink how we were going to make the music, and we made these beautiful sessions of like intimate. You have to check them out. They're so beautiful. I think
they look pretty nice.
Yeah, they're amazing. We have such an amazing talent also in our music department, that even all of these crises, all of these that we didn't know how we wanted to show it, what we wanted to show. But I think the final result, even though it's still like appearing, we're super happy. I think things like your sculpture, that you cannot imagine the joy and the excitement that for the team is to see everything lit.
I must say,
Camilo's house.
I must say, the team did an amazing job. You know, there really was like, I couldn't do anything from here. I could only give some advice on Zoom occasionally, but in terms of finding the building, in terms of the production, speed of the production, the efficiency of getting it up there, positioning it in a really great place, the curatorial team of Barcú did a fantastic job. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Way with this project, because I couldn't come, you kind of had to do all the hard work, you know. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we try to make always our best. And I really appreciate those words, because the work that goes behind everything, it's astronomical. I think nobody understands that it's a virtual fair, and even if it's a virtual fair, you have to run around everywhere, take care of the public space exhibitions, go to the Zooms, do lives, then go translate, and it's something that you don't understand, all of the work that all of us, and we're a super small team. So
you've done really well. I mean, so many art festivals and biennales and stuff canceled this year or postponed. To go ahead and make an exhibition as good as you've done, I think is really a big achievement. Well done.
No, thank you. Those words will be engraved in my heart. And okay, so I was telling you that on Tuesday, on the opening, we went to Camilo's house because it was the opening, and it was at 5 o'clock where your sculpture turned on.
Nice.
And we were there, and you cannot, and he has from his house, you can just the building and the sculpture. And as soon as in the north, I hadn't seen it up. And when I got there and I saw these beautiful words, knowing the meaning, knowing the sensibility, knowing everything behind it, knowing all of the work of all of the team of getting everything coordinated, and then seeing it up in the mountains was something that was undescribable. And then at 5 o'clock when they say, hey, it's gonna be turned on, we all took pictures, videos. I think it's very,
That's
very,
the moment
very.
that's the moment I wish I could have been there with you guys on the balcony to see it, you know.
I know it would be. It's undescribable, the feeling you get. So thank you for participating. Thank you for
I'm
saying
hoping,
yes.
hopefully my grandfathers were both hovering above the skies of Bogota at
Of
that moment.
course,
They saw it turn on.
2000,
I think they got
2000.
the message. Yeah.
Yes, I think, and they did at 2,600 meters above, more
Yeah.
closer to the stars. So
Yeah, exactly.
they got it, and I think it's a beautiful message. It was delivered in a beautiful way. We keep on getting this little, like, I know it's just a newspaper and it's just but it's like the recognition of all of the hard work of the things we've been working this year, of getting the level up, of having people like you supporting us, and that is priceless.
I've been so happy to be a part of it, guys.
And
Thank you so much.
Camilo wanted to do this live, but he had something came up, and I know he's heartbroken because I'm having this conversation with you and not him. But I'm trying to do my best to make everyone make him proud. So once again, Robert, this is speechless.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay,
Tell Camilo to call me later, okay?
Okay, I will. Okay, Robert,
Okay,
so thank you
fabulous.
once again. It was a
Love to you all. Speak soon.
pleasure,
Ciao.
and hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much, guys.